Welcome to Interface. We have with us a very special guest today. It gives me much joy to welcome and introduce to our audience our guest, transgender activist, writer, actor, entrepreneur, and now a filmmaker too, Miss Kalki Subramanian. Welcome.
Namaste.
Well, from the time when people of the transgender communities were largely the butt of ridicule and were marginalized, we have come a long way today when we are doing this program on national television. And I know that I'm talking to one person who is largely responsible for this transformed state. I'm sure our viewers would like to listen to the journey of your life in your own words.
It is an opportunity for me to not only speak about my life, I think it is also an opportunity for me to talk about the whole issue of the transgender community. During the British colonial period, there was a law that was passed, the Criminal Tribes Act. That one single law, that Criminal Tribes Act, had actually oppressed so many communities, and transgender community was one of them. And almost after a century, only last year in 2014, on April 15th, the Supreme Court of India had finally recognized transgender people. The transgender community, the Hijra people, as well as many identities that fall under the transgender umbrella, have for generations experienced oppression, discrimination, and they have also faced hatred, violence, stigma, and ostracization from our families. This is also a time where I'm happy to express that the legal recognition, the movement for transgender liberation and equal status has come only from the last decade, that too especially after the HIV epidemic and the issues that followed, and the NGOs who tried to find out the target population was for recovery and relief from HIV, AIDS, and the transgender population being largely a sex working community owing to the lack of livelihood was one such population that had to be addressed with sexual health protection and medication. And that is how the transgender community actually came into visibility to the society, to the media, to the public, to the government. And since then, slowly, gradually, many of us have come out and raised our voices. Our voices, few of us came out openly and questioned the oppression that was completely injustice, the injustice that was done to us. We questioned it. And I think for the past 10 years, our movement had been very intense. We have been advocating for our rights with the government, with the policymakers, with the law, judiciary, with the media, to the academicians, and largely to the public. And we have today our legal rights, but still a large number of us, almost all of us, are facing stigma and discrimination. I think I was one of the fewest people who have been lucky to be accepted by my family. My parents did not throw me out of my home. They gave me a good education. In spite of me having a troublesome childhood, a troublesome school life, a troublesome college life because of my identity, I think the love and affection my parents gave me, that was the reason that today I am sitting here and talking with confidence.
We're doing this interview on an educational channel. What do you think is the role that education, the institution of education in our country particularly, can do to alleviate the problem of the marginalized communities, like that of the transgenders?
I feel it's a very important question because the stigma and discrimination that prevails largely in our society is due to the ignorance and also to the lack of knowledge that is widespread about the ideas, about the issues of gender and sexuality. Do we really understand gender? Do we really know the gender identities, the diversity that exists within gender? Are we aware of the sexuality, the sexual orientation issues? Are we being narrow-minded? Are we being denied that knowledge which should definitely be given to us? Academically speaking, we definitely need education on gender and sexuality in schools and in colleges. In the past many decades, this knowledge had been denied in our academic system. If only we would have taught our children in the past so many decades, if we had given that knowledge on gender identities, gender diversity, sexual orientation, about the anatomy of women and transgender people, in a proper way that would reach our teenagers and adult people, I think largely the issues, especially pertaining to transgender community, would have been solved. I think today the transgender community remains a mystery to the society. It remains a mystery to the young people, to the teenagers, to the school children. And there is a widespread phobia, we call it transphobia, among the students, among the college-going students, among so many adults. That lack of understanding definitely comes from denial of that knowledge in schools and colleges. So, our education system should and must definitely include education, the curriculum on gender identities, gender diversity, and sexuality. I think it is time we include, it is time we do not deny that knowledge to our Indian children, Indian young people.
In a world where transgenders are largely made invisible, you have definitely come out mainly through your writings. How important has been writing to you, particularly on social media?
I think social media has given me a complete freedom and unquestionable liberty to express myself and the issues of the transgender community at large. I think social media has given that platform for everyone who is oppressed, has given a platform for the voiceless to express our life, our voices. In that way, I think I had that opportunity to put forth my thoughts as writings, as visuals, video films, as art, as poetry. I have been an avid blogger since 2005, and I also write in Tamil. So I wrote in English as well as in Tamil since 2005, and I had been discussing issues about transgender community through my writings in the social media, and it has definitely reached large number of people. I would say lakhs of people. It has reached lakhs of people, and it was also one of the reasons that change was possible in my life. And of course, to a certain extent, it is also one of the reasons that I expressed the community's issues, that change was possible. positive change was possible.
You've also made your mark now as a filmmaker, as an actor, and as a maker of films. Could you tell us something about your experiences in the visual media?
I think basically I was always interested in visual media and also in writing right from my childhood. I took up journalism and mass communication as my master's degree, and once I completed my master's, I had started a small-time magazine in Tamil called Sahodari. That was one of the first vernacular magazines for the transgender community in India. But it was a very small time magazine with only 200 copies, which was circulated in Coimbatore district. It had a huge impact on the local community. It had a huge impact on the local transgender community. And then after that, I actually had won a scholarship and I became a citizen journalist. And I started producing, with a very small handycam, I started producing small video documentations and uploaded it on YouTube. And I also encouraged my friends to join me and trained them in making small video documentary films. The mainstream media had not discussed, had not brought out our stories. Rather, they were not aware of our life and they were not interested. But since we had that liberation and that facility of social media, of the tools that were accessible by us for cheap cost, we could make these short films and put it on YouTube, our stories. That is how I think visual media was accessible to us, and we had that platform to express ourselves through social media. The great thing about social media is that our voices are there 24 hours and anybody from any part of the world could access it for research, for information, and for every purpose. So that was a boon, I would say. And definitely, they say one picture speaks 1,000 words. And each and every frame in our short film, our video documentation, expressed thousands and thousands of words from us.
You have also made an entry in politics. Could you tell us something about the change that you want to see in the political setup in our country?
I also wanted to say, to add to that visual media thing, I wanted to say that in 2011, I acted in a major feature film called Nartaki, in which I played a lead role of a transgendered person, a trans woman. It is a very beautiful Tamil film, and as we all know, the feature film industry, cinema, is a great change maker and reaches millions of people. And so my film was about the struggle of transgenders, and it also had a great impact in Tamil Nadu. And when we talk about the political scenario, for any oppressed community, political participation is very important, because that gives us the authority that actually makes us the deciding authority. Political participation for transgender people is a must, and there are many beautiful examples. There were examples and there are examples. There was Shabnam Mausi, and now there is Rai Kinnar from Chhattisgarh, who is the mayor. And there are so many other leaders who, from the transgender community, who are becoming politically important. I think transgender people can do as good as anybody else in politics, and it is necessary for us to be present in parliament and also to be present in the state assemblies. So right from being a councillor to being a minister, member of parliament, member of legislative assembly, transgender participation should be there at all levels.
I think one major reason for your success so far has been the spirit of togetherness that you have fostered among people of this community. Could you tell us something about Sahodari the organization that's doing such wonderful work?
Sahodari actually is as I said previously, we had the magazine's name as Sahodari, and later when we wanted to start a small organization, we had named it as Sahodari Foundation. Sahodari Foundation is a very informal gathering of like-minded transgender people. We don't function particularly like an organization. We don't function. We are a group of friends who try to make a change for our community and for people like us. We vouch for self-respect and we want equal status at all levels. Sahodari's one of the main activities has been to give counseling and guidance for young gender queer people, for young people who otherwise are not conforming to gender normity, and we are guiding them to help them away from depression, self-denial and suicide. That is one part of our work. Otherwise, we actually try to help them to get good jobs, try to accommodate them shortly in our homes, and try to give them the best education possible through scholarships and guidance. Apart from that, we were involved largely in the legal rights campaign, and of course we are working now with a large number of students. I think I personally, in the last 10 years, I must have met more than 5 lakh students, and personally I'm very happy to say that the young people of today are much more open-minded than what I had seen as a child 10 years ago. So there's a huge change happening.
The institution of culture, I would say, plays a major role in shaping our attitudes towards any community, whether it be the mainstream one or the marginalized one. What has been your experience about Indian culture in the context of the transgenders?
I think I have a mixed feeling about this. On the one side, we celebrate our gods and goddesses, and it is such a diverse and very interesting to see, especially in the Hindu epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata and other scriptures, and also in folk tales, how our gods become goddesses, our goddesses becoming gods, and children being born to women who has never seen a man, and so many other stories. Very interesting, wonderful, very beautiful stories and characters as well. For example, if we talk about Mahabharata, there is Arjuna becoming Brihanalla, a transgender, and Amba becoming Shikandi, Amba a woman becoming Shikandi a man, and such beautiful stories are there in Mahabharata. And again, in our Hindu religious stories, we see Krishna becoming Mohini for bringing dharma and for bringing justice. At many instances and many different incidences, Krishna becomes a Mohini to save Devas, and also even wants to save Shiva. And we have beautiful stories of Shiva being attracted to Mohini and Lord Ayyappa being born. We celebrate all of these stories. But when it comes to practical life that is in contemporary India, why are we being hypocritic? On the one side, we worship and we embrace worship, and we really respect and pray those goddesses and gods and images, and we really feel it emotionally, get connected to it emotionally too. But on the other side, when you see a transgender person, a man becoming a woman, or a woman becoming a man? Why are we being hypocrite? What is the reason of it? So, on the one side, we are celebrating our culture, but on the other side, aren't we denying our own culture? That's my confusing status on what is going on with our own hypocrisy, I would say. On the other side, within the transgender community, there is a separate group called Hijra community, a very strong and large group, Hijra community. It is a tradition that has been there for over 1,000 years. The Hijra community functions like an artificial family, a guru, chela, and it's completely matriarchal society. So people born from different parents, different cultures, languages, who identify themselves as transgenders may join this, may be willing to join the Hijra tradition. So they become a chela of a guru. So they become a family. This culture, the Hijra culture, is a very unique culture that exists only in a few countries like Pakistan, India, and a few more countries. It is a very unique to our culture, and that is very. It's a pride also that it accommodates those people who have been abandoned, and those abandoned people form a family of themselves and protect each other and nurture each other. That is the speciality that is very special about India.
Well, we've been so far talking about India, but I'm sure you've traveled abroad. What, according to you, is the global scenario regarding the LGBT movement?
In 2010, I had an invitation from the United States of America under the International Visitors Leadership Program. I was invited to Washington, D.C., New York City, and also to Salt Lake City in Utah. I visited many federal offices in Washington, D.C., and I was fortunate to also visit Amnesty International organizations like Human Rights Watch. And in New York, I went to New York Commission of Human Rights. And in Utah, Salt Lake City, I went to the Disability Center and lots of other meetings. I found that largely there is a movement in the US that is trying to change the situation of the minorities in that country. And the government also functions in such a way that it tries to address the issues of the minorities. In the US, mainly the racial minorities are an issue, definitely, and their rights have to be acknowledged. That is a major issue in the US. But in India, being a diverse country, there are several issues. I found that the way the US government, the NGOs, and the organizations, international organizations, the way they work has been very effective. And I had the chance to grasp those method of working and ideas, and I have been using some of the things that I learned from there in India. And I also shared many of our own method of working and our own ideas to the US NGOs and different individual activists. So it was a sharing and learning experience for me in the US. And besides that, I have been invited to many international seminars and have represented the transgender and the LGBT community of India in international forums.
And Facebook has recently recognized you as one of the most influential women of the world.
Yes. I think on March 8th this year, it was a pleasant surprise for me to know that Facebook has chosen me as one of the 12 inspiring women who use Facebook for community development. And it was a great acknowledgement of not only for me, but for all our transgender rights activists working relentlessly in our country to make a change for an equal status for transgender people. That really gives me a very good boost to do a lot more work, and it gives me immense energy to carry my work with more vigor and vitality.
And what role can television play in transforming our attitude towards the marginalized?
In being honest and in bringing out the truth and only the truth. And we don't need to project images which are false, especially a lot of images that about the transgender hijra communities in the cinema, especially for the past so many decades, have definitely damaged our self-respect, have definitely damaged our space in the society. I think television has a big responsibility to disclose the truth and create an awareness largely, and acknowledge that transgender people are also humans and they also need their space and their equal status.
What is the one message that you would like to leave our readers, our viewers with?
Being a male or a female or a transgender person or whatever you are it will not be a block. Our gender status cannot be a block for our personal development. I think we need to accept ourselves as we are, and we need to shine. We need to be the change makers. The gender identities, our different roles as father, mother, brother, sister, husband, wife, lover, or whatever it is. It's all assigned at birth and sometimes assigned through social normatives. But as a human being, we are all the same. We are all the same as a human being, and we all need love, acceptance. We all need respect. And we transgender people need that too. Otherwise, you and we are same, and we are just being ourselves, and we respect ourselves.